Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Transform with MG podcast, where we'll talk all things transforming your health, body, and mindset. Today, I will be sharing 10 secrets to balance your hormones so that you can enjoy stable energy, curb your cravings, and transform how you feel and look. First of all, as you can probably tell, I am not in my usual space. So, for the last 16 episodes that you were either listening to or watching, I have been in a professional studio in Bali. Unfortunately, I do not have access to that. So, I tried as best as I could to just set up a home studio. And I do realize it is not ideal. The audio quality has probably diminished, and definitely the video quality has diminished. But I am a firm believer that if there's a will, there's a way. And I want to continue with my mission to share my knowledge, my expertise, my past experience with you so that you can have a more enjoyable journey and absolutely thrive, like internally, externally, and learn from my mistakes instead of making your own. Because over the last 8 years, when I started my fitness journey, I have made every possible mistake under the sun. So, this is the whole mission of the podcast, and I want to continue sharing my message to empower women to feel fucking amazing in their body. And if it means that for the time being, the production can't be ideal, well, then it is what it is. And if you really are getting annoyed about the fact that perhaps the audio quality or the video quality isn't 100%, well, then I do apologize. And maybe you can come back when I have access to a studio again. But a little bit of an update before I dive into today's topic. What has been going on? Where have I been? Took a little bit of a break from recording. I think the last podcast was published at the end of November or maybe at the start of December. And then mid December, I left Bali. But quick visit to Ireland, surprised my family, which was so lovely. So I kind of tricked my parents into telling them when I'm actually coming back from Bali. So that was like emotional and yeah, just very lovely to be able to squeeze my parents, give them a hug, also see my friends who I haven't seen in 8 months. And then shortly after that, I was flying to Poland, where I'm originally from, spending Christmas there, and then going down to a ski resort for a couple of nights, improving my skiing skills. And turns out that 5 days of skiing doesn't make you a pro, but no broken limbs. So that is a positive, I guess. And then I came back to Ireland 6th of January. So it's only been about 10 days that I'm really feeling in a routine again. I was a bit all over the place in terms of like diet, in terms of training, in terms of everything. And to be honest, it was making me feel quite anxious because I am somebody that thrives of routine, and my body, my system just prefers it in terms of like my energy output, my digestion, my skin, even when I'm following a good nutrition diet, I have a structure. I'm keeping on top of my training. So obviously I was active. I wasn't worried about that. I was enjoying Christmas and I was so appreciative that I even had the chance to like come back from Bali and be able to spend that time with my friends and family. Initial plans was to get back to Bali right away after I came back from Poland, but I had a lot of time over the Christmas to think and reflect back on 2023, what's important to me, how I want 2024 to look, and I love to tell you I have the answers, but unfortunately, I do not. I am still feeling a little confused as to where I want to take my life, where I want to base myself. For now, I figured that the best decision would be just to find a little bit of stability and routine and focus on my work. I have few exciting things here in Ireland, and I am in no particular rush to get out of here, if that makes sense. I have the full freedom to be able to get up and go anytime that I want to. So the decision that I'm making to be here is what I feel is right for me at the present moment. And I'm not viewing it as something like, oh, I'm stuck here. Like, I know I've been always saying that I'm like, I don't want to live in Ireland. I actually want to get out and be in hot climates in an environment that's conducive with my goals. And I still absolutely stand by this. Um, but also, I just don't want to be running away from problems as such. And rushing into things when there is absolutely no need. So that's the update. I'm in Ireland for the time being. I do have plans to leave maybe March, April, possibly Bali, possibly Australia, possibly Cape Town. Who knows? I am honestly taking it month by month, and I really mean it by that. Focusing on 1 week at a time without overwhelming myself, without thinking too far ahead into the future, and just taking in what I have here, which is being able to spend all this time with my family, which obviously, when you immigrate, you don't get that opportunity. Spending time with my friends who live here in Ireland, which again, I don't have that opportunity. Business opportunities, like I'm doing an exciting talk next month. Again, I in Bali, it's fully remote. I don't get as much in-person opportunities either. So I am just being grateful of the things that I have going on here. So that's a bit of an update. So in terms of the production, you might see me in this space for a little bit longer than I'd like to, unless I get a chance to like pop into a studio. But as far as I know, the closest studio to me that's like a professional setup is about 2 hours away, which of course, yes, I could go and book that out for an hour or two, but it's not going to be happening every week. We all know the magic word, and that is consistency. And if I want to stay consistent with this podcast, it means doing what I can with the resources that I do have. So, okay, let's get into the topic of today, which are hormones. 10 secrets to balance your hormones. So, first time that I started to really consider the impact that hormones have on my body is when I was suffering from HA, hypothalamic amenorrhea. So, I lost my period back in 2018, and I struggled and fought and tried to recover from it relentlessly for 5 years, which meant that I've been going around to different specialists, including gynos, endocrinologists, GPs, getting various medical tests done, my blood tests done very regularly, been given so many different answers as to what could be the potential cause of me not having a period, because just a little bit of a background, on paper everything looked perfect, that my bloods looked perfect, I didn't have hormonal imbalances as per like test results, no cysts on my ovaries, everything in general is fine, but I wasn't fine. And what annoyed me the most was that the first solution that I was given by basically every health specialist that I went to see was that if I don't want to get pregnant, if I don't want to have babies, then it's not a problem. Also was put on hormones to try and gain it back. And I've just really started to take it into my own hands and doing a lot of research behind possible causes, the remedies, the solutions that I could take. I worked with a health coach, which was super helpful as well. And that just gave me a lot of knowledge. It was a time where I learned a lot about how the female body works, and something that I started to become really passionate and curious about. And even with every single woman that I work with now, I really delve deep and try to understand their individual needs and what's going on outside of just looking at how their diet is looking and how much they're exercising. Really taking a holistic approach and looking at stress levels, at sleep, at the types of foods that they're eating, timings of foods, their overall lifestyle habits. And from there, I take a really individualized approach into how best I can help them with achieving whatever their goal is. And their goal doesn't have to be like a hormonal imbalance or anything like that. Not everyone has hormonal imbalances, but the approach that we take, even if it's goals like fat loss, toning up, body recomposition, gaining muscle, gaining strength, it's still a holistic approach. We aren't doing anything that could potentially disturb their hormones. I also recently became a certified women coaching specialist. Again, it's really just to become the best coach possible that I can for women. And essentially, it wasn't until I started to deal and be in the process of recovering from HA that I started to look deeper into like the impact that hormones have on us, but also how our lifestyle habits and behavior influence our hormones. So what are hormones anyway? When it comes to hormones, it's really hard to grasp its understanding when we feel that there is something off, because they are not something that we can physically see or physically identify as there might be a underlying hormonal issue. Hormones are chemical messengers that coordinate different functions in the body. They send signals through our blood to our organs, skin, muscles, and other tissues. These signals tell our body what to do and when to do it. Hormones essentially control everything. They have the ultimate power. They dictate how we feel, or metabolism, or reproduction, growth, and development. They influence our mental and emotional health, how tired or energized we feel, how we look, relationships, appetite, and sex drive. Even a minor change in hormones can have a significant impact on our body. Some signs that your hormone might be imbalanced include things like fatigue, low mood, low motivation, low energy, PMS, irregular periods, bloating, and acne. And this list is not exclusive. I really want to address the importance of this and how vital hormones are in optimizing our well-being or health or body composition, because the advice that I often hear now in the fitness space really doesn't take that into consideration and can have a negative impact on your health. It's as if the fitness industry takes such a black and white view of our journeys and focuses solely on like diet and exercise, or focuses on aesthetics and body composition rather than how we feel internally. So for today's episode, I'm actually going to break down the 10 secrets into two parts. And today I'm going to be sharing the first 5 parts. I don't want to make this episode super long, and this is why I am deciding to just break things down for you. So without further ado, let's get into the first 5 secrets to happy, healthy hormones. My first tip, and probably the most impactful change that I have made to my eating habits, is to have a high protein, balanced breakfast within the first hour of waking up. And this has been a game changer for having stable energy and really setting myself up for the day. A mistake I made in the past was to actually push most of my calories down to later in the day, because I felt that the less I eat during the day, and especially earlier on in the day, the less overall calories I will consume. See, I always found myself hungry in the evenings, and I always identified myself as somebody with a massive sweet tooth, which meant that I needed something sweet, like a dessert, right after eating a savory dinner. I also was led to believe that training fasted burned more calories, hence I like skipped eating my meal before my morning sessions. And another concept that I was introduced to at that time was intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is essentially when you restrict your eating window to like a confined amount of hours. So naturally, I assumed that breakfast is absolutely pointless. Besides, it was also an inconvenience. I was always rushing in the mornings and never really had time to sit down and prepare a proper breakfast, never mind sitting down to actually eat it mindfully. I'm gonna admit I was so wrong. They say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I will actually flip that around and say that breakfast is the most powerful meal of the day. What having a balanced breakfast leads to is stabilizing your blood sugar levels. It keeps you fuller for longer. It also increases your energy levels, and it actually prevents you from overeating later in the day. Now, when I say balanced breakfast, I don't mean a bowl of cereal or grabbing a cereal bar just as you're running out the door. A balanced breakfast consists of protein, complex carbs, fats, and fiber. And I know that might sound a lot if you're not somebody that is used to having a breakfast. Maybe you just grab a coffee on the go, or maybe you are somebody that has something really convenient like cereal or breakfast bars, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. For example, for the last couple of months, I've been literally having the same breakfast, and people are like, how can you eat the same thing for breakfast all the time? But honestly, people eat cereal since they were like 5 years old for the last 20, 30 years, and they don't seem to be complaining about it. The breakfast that I've been having for the last couple of months literally takes 5 minutes. So easy to make. So, what my breakfast has been consisting of are two full eggs, two egg whites. I'm getting my healthy fats from the egg yolk. I'm getting my protein from the egg yolk and from the egg whites. And I will pair that with like a fruit salad. So I will have a banana because that's high in potassium, which helps to relieve PMS. So that 7 to 10 days leading up to your period when you might have cramps or mood swings or bloating, the potassium in the banana helps to relieve that. But I would usually have a banana there, kiwi, raspberries. If I am in my luteal phase and it's leading up to my period, I will, or simply I know I'm going to have an active day, or I'm just feeling extra hungry and I'm listening to my hunger signals, I will add a slice of sourdough in there as well. You're actually getting about 5 grams of protein in the sourdough as well, which can help increase your protein intake. But this takes me 5 minutes because all I have to do is whisk the eggs, throw it on a pan, scramble them, cut up my fruit, and there we have it. I sit down, have it mindfully. Other options of high protein balanced breakfast includes oats with some protein powder, raspberries, dark chocolate. There you go, fats, carbs, protein. Another breakfast option would be things like Greek yogurt, some granola, some fruit, and some flax seeds. You could also make a smoothie the night before if you are really somebody that just runs out the door and doesn't have time to make any breakfast at all. Making a smoothie with some oats, with Greek yogurt, with milk and frozen berries in the fridge the night before, you can grab it and have it when you arrive to work, for example, or sip on it as you're walking to work. Now, you might be saying, Martina, but I'm never hungry in the morning, and the thought of having a full balanced meal is making me sick. Okay, I get it, and I can totally resonate because I used to be somebody that never woke up hungry. And before I was doing the intermittent fasting, when I wasn't eating until 1 p.m., I would push my breakfast to at least 10 or 11 because I just would see it pointless. I wasn't hungry. It wasn't affecting my strength training in the gym. I actually found that I was still able to progress. So I was like, why on earth should I eat anything? The thing is, you should have an appetite in the morning. And when you are waking up with no appetite, it could be a sign that there is some hormonal imbalance or that your stress levels are high or you have a poor liver. Another reason why you might be waking up not hungry in the morning is that you're having your last meal too close to bedtime. I would recommend to stop eating 2 or 3 hours before bed. I will get onto that in another tip, which involves sleep. But having your last meal 2 to 3 hours means that you will allow your body to digest that, and you're not disturbing your sleep quality or quantity by digesting the food. And it also means that you'll be fasting for a long enough period that you will be waking up hungry. Now, it might take a little bit of time for your body to get used to eating in the morning, but our bodies are great at adapting to new stuff once you keep at it. So you could start really small. You could start by just having a small snack in the morning and building up your appetite and have it that way. But over time, your body will naturally tell you that it's time to eat when it wakes up. Now I know myself that although I'm waking up before 6 a.m. and we're still in January, it's in Ireland, it's still dark. It feels like middle of the night. And on one hand, it doesn't feel right to be having breakfast because I feel like I'm eating in the middle of the night. But on the other hand, I am genuinely hungry. And this means that I don't feel like eating past 6 or 7 p.m. I'm not getting this sugar rush or mad cravings later on in the day because I am fueling my body from the get-go. I'm providing my body with the energy that it needs earlier on in the day so that I'm not playing catch up. Then come nighttime when my body is trying to fuel up the tank and suddenly I have uncontrollable hunger or mad cravings, usually for like high fat or high sugary foods. So as simple as it sounds, this small habit change of having a balanced meal within the first hour of waking up can have a tremendous positive impact on your mood, on your energy, and your overall fitness progress. Tip two of healthy balanced hormones is to eat a high protein diet. And there are a few reasons for this. Research shows that most women are not getting enough protein. Most women consume 50 grams of protein a day or less. This is way too little. Protein is vital. It's so important. And it's not only for the people who lift. Protein is the key building block to strong nails, hair, and glowy skin. It is also the key component of building muscle, maintaining muscle, and enhancing recovery. It is also the most satiating out of the three macronutrients. So the three macronutrients, what food is combined of, is protein, carbs, and fats. And protein out of those three is the most satiating, which means that you're going to feel more satisfied and full after your meals, which also means you are less likely to snack in between meals if your core meals consist of adequate amounts of protein. So how do you go about having a high protein diet? The first step that I would start off with is by having three core meals that can be or usually will be a breakfast, lunch, dinner. And with each of those meals, you want to have at least 20 to 30 grams of protein. So for a woman, that would be roughly a palm-sized portion if you're using hands as a guide of portion control and you're not actually tracking. But just ensure that there is a protein source in each one of them and use this thought process, whether you're making your own meal at home, whether you're going out to a restaurant, or whether you're going out to a supermarket to pick up something on the go. Look at the meal and ask yourself, does it contain protein as the first source? Then you can add in everything else. Let's take, for example, dinner. A high protein dinner with a substantial amount and an adequate amount of protein would mean that you look at protein first, which could be salmon, and then you could pair it with sweet potato and some broccoli. Another option would be using beef mince, some rice, kidney beans, tomato, canned tomatoes, whatever. I just described like a chili con carne basically there. And that way you're ensuring that you are actually consuming a high protein diet. You're keeping yourself full, satisfied. You're supporting, maintaining your muscles and bones, which I mean, even if you're not interested in actually looking like you have muscles, it's still such a vital component if you care about your health, because as we age, we lose muscles. And if you want to be walking up the stairs or carrying in your grocery shopping at the age of 60, then you should really consider whether you're having enough protein in your diet. The third tip to healthy balanced hormones is to optimize your sleep. Sleep is so freaking underrated. And I think it's because we cannot see a clear link between sleep and our habits, our body composition changes, and our health as such, in comparison to, I suppose, controlling the quantity or quality of food or how many times we exercise or the intensity of exercise. But sleep is a key and vital pillar to health. It regulates all hormones. Honestly, magic happens when we sleep. Interestingly, there was a study done that showed participants who slept 5 hours or less ended up consuming 500 calories extra. So that's an additional 500 calories a day, which if fat loss is your goal, for example, that can really quickly put you out of the deficit and might be the reason why you're struggling to drop body weight. Even if fat loss isn't the goal, it can lead to potential weight gain if you're constantly undersleeping. The reason for the overconsumption of calories and why we tend to reach for highly palatable, those high fat, high sugar foods when we're sleep deprived is because our hormones that are responsible for hunger and satiety, ghrelin and leptin, are out of whack. This increases appetite and hunger and also decreases our satiety or fullness levels. In addition to how it impacts our adherence to diet, it also impacts our motivation and willpower to engage and stay consistent with exercise. The intensity and duration of exercise also reduces as a result of lack of sleep. The recommended amount and quantity of sleep is anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. Although it's not just the quantity that matters, quality of sleep is also super important. I've never been a great sleeper and I've always struggled to wind down. My brain is going 90 the minute I try to fall asleep. So over the last few years, I've really tried to optimize it and find a routine that gets me into the best sleep possible. So, really prioritizing my sleep hygiene. Some of the methods that I use, which have worked tremendous for me, is do not bring my phone to bed. That's first thing that I do because I know myself that when it's under the pillow, and I get a notification, or I don't know, I get the urge to even check the time, I will fall in a rabbit hole of scrolling TikTok until 2 in the morning. So it doesn't even go near my bed. I leave it on the other side of the room, charging, airplane mode on, alarm on, and I try not to look at it. Second thing, I mentioned this before when I was talking about meal timings, but I have my last meal 2 to 3 hours before bed. This is actually something I started to do recently. I didn't even realize how much of an impact it had because, like I mentioned, I used to be somebody that had a massive sweet tooth and I felt like I needed something after dinner. I trained myself now to just eat at 6 or 7 p.m. and finish at that. Have some water. I also have magnesium, which is my other tip. Magnesium helps to wind down and calm the brain down. But yeah, essentially having that last meal 2 to 3 hours before bed means that I'm not digesting food, which can be disturbing the quality of our sleep. And because I am having a balanced, high protein breakfast within that first hour of waking up means that I'm not actually hungry come the evening, which is something that I thought. I thought that earlier on in the day I'll eat. That means that I'm just going to be eating for a longer duration of the time during the day, and hence I will consume more calories overall, but it hasn't been the case. So that's the first one, no phone into bed. Second one, having my last meal 2 to 3 hours before going to sleep, having magnesium before bed to help me wind down. And then I keep a journal by my bedside locker and a book. I try to read at least 5 to 10 pages before I fall asleep. And I have my journal beside my bed because sometimes I get ideas. I all the books that I read are nonfiction, mainly self-development books. And when I'm reading self-development books, especially if it's in the area of business, to be honest, it's not really recommended to do that. It can wire up your brain. But I feel like it still helps for me to get out of my own head. But I have that journal. So if any ideas pop in, or I remember that I actually needed to complete a task the following day, I will jot that down in my notebook, in my journal. Another thing that I do to optimize my sleep is cut my caffeine intake out by 2 p.m. So that means no things like tea, no coffee, no Coke Zero. I'm fairly sensitive to caffeine. Other people might be able to metabolize caffeine a lot better. But even if you're somebody that feels they can have a cup of coffee and hit the head on the pillow and sleep, that does not mean that your sleep quality is great. So even if it's not affecting your ability to fall asleep, I still would recommend cut it out by 2 p.m. because caffeine has a half-life, so it's still circulating in your body a number of hours later. But to wrap it up, sleep is magical for restoring your hormones, balancing things out, increasing your energy, helping you with adherence to diet and nutrition. So I wouldn't sleep on it, pun intended. I would definitely put it above diet. I would put it above exercise because everything is easier when you optimize your sleep, essentially. The fourth secret to have happy, healthy hormones is to get morning sunlight as soon as you can. And that is a very unconventional tip, I suppose. Not many people talk about it. The first time I heard about this was from Huberman. So the Huberman podcast is absolutely brilliant. Neuroscience, habit-based, science-based tips, protocols. Absolutely obsessed with all the information and knowledge that Andrew Huberman shares. So shout out to him. Not that he'd be listening to this podcast anyway, but I like to cite any information that I get from people. So he's one that I got a lot of tips from, especially around optimizing sleep as well. But morning sunlight. So, what does morning sunlight do to us and how it helps us balance our hormones? Essentially, when we get in morning sunlight, and that works even on a cloudy day, on an overcast day, which there's a lot of here in Ireland. So, don't think that it's because you can't see the sun, you're not getting the effects of it. You still are. Essentially, sunlight helps to reduce melatonin production. Melatonin is a hormone responsible for making us feel sleepy. This means that we're feeling more awake during the day, and then it's easier to wind down as the sun sets. It also helps to regulate our circadian rhythm. So, our circadian rhythm is our body's internal 24-hour clock. We're just more alive during the day and then fall asleep during the night. Another thing with getting morning sunlight is I like to pair it with a walk. So instead of just stepping outside my front door and staring at the sky for 10 minutes, get dressed and get out for a walk. I listen to a podcast. You can subscribe to the Transform with MG podcast and listen to this on your walk while you're getting in some sunlight. And you're killing two birds with one stone, essentially, because you're adding to your general movement, which is so important. It's been shown that in order to prevent any like cardiovascular diseases, heart diseases, and whatnot, an individual should be doing a minimum of 7,000 steps a day. So getting outside and getting a bunch of your steps in the morning kind of adds to your overall activity levels and thereby adds to your health. And exercise is another tip that I will get into in the second part of this podcast. Secret 5 out of the 10 secrets to happy balanced hormones is to push out your caffeine intake. And I mentioned caffeine already when I was talking about optimizing your sleep. But what I want to touch on in this part and how it affects your hormones is actually drinking coffee on an empty stomach and how this might be disturbing your hormones big time. And that's another mistake I've made. Honestly, all the things that I'm talking about today, essentially, I was doing wrong and I had to learn the hard way. So now that I can speak from experience and studying more about it, reading more research about it, essentially, why coffee is bad for you in the morning is because when we wake up, or stress hormone cortisol is elevated. Stress in itself is not a bad thing. It serves many functions in our body. For example, it gets us out of bed in the morning. But because that cortisol is elevated in the morning, we're already stressed. Coffee is a stimulant, which means that we're increasing that cortisol even further. If you are somebody that does early morning hit sessions or early morning strength training sessions or early runs, and all you're doing is waking up, drinking a cup of coffee, and then doing vigorous exercise, then your body is in serious overdrive. Another thing is that coffee is acidic and can cause stomach issues. So if you're experiencing bloating or diarrhea or pains, it might be the fact that you're just having coffee on an empty stomach. Now, if you're a coffee lover, so am I. Really, I truly love coffee. I'm not even drinking it for the caffeine effects as such, although I do love a boost. It helps with my productivity, with focus, with training as well. But do not have it on an empty stomach. Either eat a balanced breakfast with your coffee or before having that coffee, or at least combine it with some substantial snack to combat the rise in cortisol. And these are the 5 out of the 10 secrets to happy balanced hormones. So, to go over what we talked about today, secret number one is to start your day with a balanced high protein breakfast. Secret number two is to eat a high protein diet. Secret number three is to optimize your sleep. Secret number four is to get out for morning sunlight. And secret number five is to stop having coffee or caffeine on an empty stomach. I will get into the remaining 5 secrets of balanced hormones in the next part of it. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. Your support doesn't go unnoticed. If you do enjoy the podcast, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It supports the channel. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.